Hey friends, it's Jill here with a Hometown Homestead, and I just finished filming an amazing interview with Kate Snow, who's the author of the Math with Confidence program. And we discussed all of the details about the fourth grade curriculum, from when it'll come out to what you can expect for the lessons, what manipulatives you need, and where the future of this thing's headed down the road. So if you have any questions, I think we're about to answer them for you. So without further ado, let's get into it. Today, I'm going to welcome Kate Snow from Math with Confidence, and we're going to discuss a little bit about what's going on in the fourth grade book. So if you have questions, we're going to jump right into it. So first off, Kate, will you give us a little bit of detail about the overall creation process of how your books come together?
Sure. Well, thanks so much for having me, Jill. I'm so glad to be here with you today. So this fourth grade Math with Confidence is coming out this June. And so I started writing it in June of 2022. So each book is a full 2 years where I start the 2 years before outlining, understanding what I want to put in there, doing some research on the math and thinking through how it all fits together. And then that fall, I started pilot testing it in fall of 2022. And you know that well, since you're one of those wonderful pilot testers who helped me so much with feedback on the original draft.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And I am grateful, very grateful to be a part of that program.
Well, I'm so grateful for all of you because you make a huge difference to the final product. And so as you know, every few weeks I would write a unit and then email it out to you guys. We worked our way through the whole pilot version that year. And then this past year, so the 2023-2024 school year, I've been taking all that feedback you guys gave me, which is a humongous amount. There's about 150 to 200 families in the pilot. So I often end up with like 40 pages of single-spaced feedback by the time I put that all together.
Oh, you asked for detail?
And it helps.
We're here for it.
Because sometimes, I'm looking, sometimes it's like, oh, like a whole bunch of people didn't like that game. So, okay, I really need to change it. And sometimes it's just one mom has an idea. I'm like, oh, that's genius. Like I need to do that. So I get so much from it, but it's a lot to wade through. It's a process, that revising. And so I revise them unit by unit. And of course, I'm doing this all in conjunction with a team of people who are kind of providing the support. So I write every word, I draw every picture, but I draw them like this. I'll show you what a page looks like before it is.
Let me bring you up so everybody can
sounds
see.
Good. Yeah. So this is what a page looks like when I draw it with a Sharpie here on paper. And then we have a wonderful graphic designer who then makes it look beautiful, like it will look like in the actual workbook. And so he works alongside me. He works on the pilot version and then also revises them based on the feedback and the revisions. And so that's where I actually just finished the revisions to fourth grade. So here we are in February of 2024. So my work is all done. It's all in. Hooray. That felt really good. And so now the graphic designer is continuing to finish those revisions to the workbook pages, do all the typesetting. I give him a Word document and he makes it look pretty on the page.
Right.
For the instructor guides. Also, there's, of course, 2 or 3 levels of editing that happen in there to make sure everything's as accurate as we can possibly get it. And then, of course, it has to be printed, which is also, a complicated process. That will happen, and we're aiming for, I think, the first week of April for it to go to the printer this year. But printing space is hard to get. There's been weird consolidations in the printing industry over the last couple of years. And so the team at Well-Trained Mind is like on it. They've got the space reserved. They've got it all ready to go. But that also takes a bit to get through, get to the warehouses, and then finally be ready to release on June 11. So it takes a while.
So just to verify, there is no book waiting for this release date. Would that be accurate?
That is true. My best version of it right now is all of the pages printed out in a binder. And so, yes, I have not touched it. I will probably not touch it till maybe the last week of May when I will get the copies directly from the warehouse. So I'm so sorry for people who have to wait for it. I know some families are eager to start as soon as they possibly can, but that's the very, very quickest we can get it to anybody. And, I'm just one person. So it takes a long time for me to write all those words, draw all those workbook pages. And I'm so glad to have a team of people who help with like the editing and the typesetting and drawing the pictures, because it would not be as pretty if I did that part. But it's just little me writing everything. So this is the very fastest we can do it. And I'm so glad we've been able to keep on the year-to-year schedule.
Yes, that's been really great. And
Mhm.
I just want to reiterate that I have used other curriculums in the past where there was a team of writers and they could
Mhm.
launch an entire series in a year or maybe two, but that is not what brought me to you. I like the
Mhm.
way that you write the curriculum. And so since that's our goal as parents wanting to teach a curriculum, you can't just hire people to speed up this process. Like
Mhm.
this
Exactly.
has to go one year at a time. And as somebody who has participated in the pilot program, there is active feedback in the middle of these units coming in, and sometimes modifications come out to those units in real time,
Mhm.
even
Yep.
for us. And so that's what we value, and that's what we appreciate about this program, is that it does have that ability to adapt, to be ready for the final printing before it comes back to everybody on the shelf. So
Yeah,
just
absolutely. It makes such a difference having that and being able to make those changes and know that I'm really, this wasn't just an idea, that this really works in real life is so helpful. But it takes time to do that. If I just wrote
yes.
it all out and gave it to, printed it, then it would go faster, but it wouldn't have the same level of testing that
Right.
really gives me the assurance that this is going to work for a wide variety of families.
Yes. And I will say, I have just been amazed during the process that topics that you're told when you're starting out with a little one are going to be difficult to teach have just been walked into so easily
Mhm.
that my son will often wonder, like, well, what was supposed to be so hard about this? And
That's
so,
music to my ears. That's the whole goal of the program in so many ways.
yeah, I'm like, that was supposed to be hard.
Mhm.
So we've just been really happy with the way that's gone for us.
Well, I'm so glad. And that is a real goal of me as I write it, to think about how can we just be foreshadowing, previewing, and
Right.
just taking it up a step at a time so that when we do get to this, it's not hard.
Right. And we're there. I mean,
Mhm.
it's going super well. So,
Good.
okay, since we've gone over the creation process, we had those questions that we pulled off the Facebook group, and I just want to
Mhm.
encourage anybody who's thinking about this program, if you are not in the Facebook community, to make sure to check it out, because there's tons of questions and people that have come from all different curriculum paths before to get here and are able to answer some questions. So if you're not there, definitely jump over there. It's where we source the questions that we're just about to go over. So just want to encourage you on that. But we're going to hit some of these quick question and answers before we jump into some of the more in-depth ones. So to
Sounds
get
good.
started,
The speed round of fourth grade math
yeah,
with confidence.
speed round. In fourth grade, are we going to see picture books still? And are they necessary to successfully complete the program?
Great question. So there will still be picture books in fourth grade, one recommended at the end of every unit. If you don't want to do them, it's perfectly fine. They're completely optional, but they're very fun. This is the last year that picture books will be included. In fifth and sixth grade, there will be more of a real life math question answer book
Mhm.
to read. So it's a little bit less for parents to manage. It's just one book for the year where kids then are directed to read a certain number of pages after the end of each unit. So hopefully that will simplify things a little bit for families as their kids get older.
And I just have to say, I might be the worst ever on this. I teach kindergarten, first, and fifth right now, and we've also done fourth. So the only year we haven't done is third. I haven't read one picture book to my children, and I just want you guys to know they're still successfully learning their math skills without the picture book. So
You're just
don't.
for fun.
Right, they're for fun, and a lot of them can be found on YouTube for
Mhm.
people that don't have options to libraries to check them out or don't want to
Mhm.
purchase.
Absolutely.
All right. So how long are each lessons taking on average in fourth grade?
So in general, fourth grade is a lot like third grade. They're very similar years. Most of the pilot test families found it took about 10 to 15 minutes of hands-on instruction from the parent, and then 15 to 20 minutes of independent work for the child. And of course, that your mileage may vary. If you've got a speedy one, they might just zoom right through things. If you have a slowpoke, he or she is still going to be a slowpoke. But that's been the general average. So coming in about 25 to 35 minutes in all for each lesson.
And one thing I would like to say on that is if you have a child that is really dragging their feet, I think it's a good cue to kind of say, like, mom has 10 minutes to work on math right now, or mom has 20 minutes to work on math right now. Let's see how far we can go. We don't have to let them take all day, but we still, of course, need to be progressing. The other thing on that that's been super successful for us is to separate the worksheet time. So
that's smart. Yeah, that's a really helpful.
I like to teach the lesson to each child in the morning. And then during my little one's nap time, when I'm trying to get her down, they can all go do their worksheets quietly. And then I feel like that actually helps them with the independence that everybody's seeking. The program we came from before, I was not allowed to get up while he was doing his worksheets because he had so many questions. And so this was a great way to kind of push that off a little bit and say, you know, we're just going to do 15 to 20 minutes of math right now, and then you're on your own for the rest later, and we'll come back to meet. So that's worked super well for us.
That's great. And, you know, there's a lot of research on how spreading out learning helps kids remember it better. So even giving it that 3 or 4 hour pause, I bet you're actually helping cement that knowledge a little bit, because he has to stop and think, oh, wait, now what did mom teach me this morning? You know, it has to recall it. It's a little bit harder to recall, which it's a good kind of hard. Helps them remember it.
Okay, so next, what manipulatives are necessary for grade 4, and how often are we going to be using manipulatives this year?
So manipulatives are still part of the program because we definitely need some concrete representations of some of the topics in 4th grade. But in general, it's less. You know, as kids get older, they become more abstract thinkers, so they don't need quite as much concrete hands-on work. Again, your mileage may vary. If your child is still a real concrete thinker, you might use them more than other parents, and that's fine. But the basic manipulative set is almost exactly the same as 3rd grade. You'll need counters, play money. Base 10 blocks are in there, but only occasionally. If you don't already own them, you might be able to get away without them. And there's also a printable template at the back of the book if anybody doesn't want to buy them. And then pattern blocks come back. They were used in the earlier levels of Math with Confidence, and we bring them back for adding and subtracting fractions and mixed numbers, since they work so nicely to use the big hexagon as the whole, and then you can use fractions and really see how adding and subtracting mixed numbers goes. And then beyond that, I think it's just the other things are like cards, dice, a ruler. Oh, and you need a protractor for 4th grade because we get into measuring angles. I
want to say on the pattern blocks, that blew my mind when we were learning it, because I was like, how are these going to work? And I just never had extrapolated how those could go into teaching fractions. And it was genius idea. I thought.
Thank you. It was one of those times where I was really like, how can I do this? Because, you know, you can buy fraction bars and circles, but you don't get like enough to have like 4.5 plus, you know, 1.5 or 1 2/3 plus 2 2/3. And so
I had bought those previously for another, for our other program. And so I'm like, well, surely I'm going to get those out. No, it did. It worked. It was perfect. It was great.
Good. I'm so glad.
The other tip I want to share is that I've seen a lot of people talking about the number of times they need to get out playing cards. And we have these math dice. They're Math Dice Junior from the Think Fun.
Oh,
and you get 4 in a bag, and I have 1. So if that tells you how our math manipulatives venture. But we use these instead of cards. They have numbers up through 12. So we use these a lot for speed practice, for multiplication facts, addition facts, those kinds of things, rolling them together, and then they'll multiply the two. But these also come in handy in place of cards if you're playing a game and you don't want to get the cards out. If they roll or land on 11 or 12, you just have them roll again. So it's basically recreating, and then you're just having a few less items. As far as counters go, what's worked really well for us, well, my husband might disagree, but what I like is just to use a roll of pennies and a roll of dimes, because they all fit for all levels on the 10 frame, and you're not purchasing something extra. So aside from the fact that you have a little money occasionally on the floor or whatever, it's never a big value. So you're not actually purchasing an extra counter who doesn't have some loose change laying around. So that's a good one. That's worked super well for us.
Oh, that's great. Those are good tips for just keeping things a little bit simpler and as easy as possible.
I think it's important for people to know that you can adapt. I mean, the pattern blocks, yes, you're going to need those, but some of the other things like the cards, or even like there's an app on your phone that you can get to flip a coin. Some of those things are available if you want to kind of streamline and keep your manipulatives minimal. So there are options outside of having, to go buy play money, for example. You can cut out the
Right.
tiny little monies that you put in the back for the Blackline Masters, or just use some out of a game that you have going on, just
Right.
whatever works for your family. You don't have to go purchase those things if you don't already have them. Okay. Would you consider, this one comes up so much, would you consider changing the word grade to the word level?
Yes, there were lots of questions about this. And I know it's so hard for kiddos when they're not when their best level for math is not their age-based grade level. I know it can be hard on the ego and hard on moms to have to be helping their child through that. Unfortunately, at this point, we cannot change that simply because of the ISBN for these books is set with a certain title in all of the different distributors that sell it. And so it is just not possible to change. It just would be unwinding too much. But there have been some very creative solutions that I've seen to this. The best one I found, or the easiest, is just to take, this only says grade 4, like right up, or actually this says grade 4. This was an old copy. It will say 4th grade. But you can just put a sticker over it that says like, Emily's Math with Confidence or something like that. Or if you are printing the PDF, you can just cut this right off before you stick that cover in the binder. I know it does have a 4 on it though. But you can call it level 4, even if the title of the book says 4th grade.
Correct. Another great choice is always to let them design their own cover. When I was in school, I went to public and we made covers for our books all the time. So maybe they want to, use their arts and crafts and decorate a cover. You could have them do that before even introducing the book and put it on for them, so they don't even have the recognition or the awareness before they get there.
Yeah. And, moms know their kids best, but I also think it's okay to say, this is the math that I think is best for you right now. Right. And you are doing great. I am so proud of how hard you are working, and you are doing great. You're going to be fine in math. Kids are on all sorts of different levels in math.
I definitely agree.
Acknowledge that and just say, this is okay. And I love you and I'm proud of you. Because, the more that we stress about it, the more our kids stress about it. Right.
That tends to be the case, right?
I think about all the things I stress about for my kids and see how they pick up on my stress. And so just try to take your own stress down. It may help your kids' stress go down on it too.
Okay, next. Will it have the same 3-page format as the 3rd grade program?
Yes. So like I said before, it's very similar to 3rd grade in the format. The first page is the lesson activities page that streamlines your hands-on teaching. And then there's a practice page and a review page. So that is all very similar to how 3rd grade is structured.
And on that topic, will the review page still have the spiral aspect to it?
Yes, absolutely. So the review page will have a bunch of, it will review topics from throughout the year so that kids don't get rusty on those really essential core skills, core vocabulary words, word problems, mental math, just a little mix of everything on those review pages to keep their skills sharp.
I will say I find this to be one of the biggest assets of the program is that constant review every single day. They're constantly pulling up things that they've learned in the past, and it allows them to continue on and progress, maybe when they haven't necessarily mastered a topic. And then by the time it comes back around, they have so much more practice with it that they have sharpened their skills to a level that has just naturally grown over time. So I personally really love that.
I'm so glad. And I think I agree with you. I think it's a really distinctive part of Math with Confidence and a really important part. It's like what I was saying before about the importance of spaced learning. There's all sorts of brain science about how we memorize things best. We learn them for the long haul when we learn them, then we pause a while, then we come back to them. We have to bring it back out of our brain, with that little bit of extra effort of I was just about to forget this, but now I'm remembering it, really cements it in for long-term retention. And I think it's also something that makes Math with Confidence pretty different from other programs in that I actually expect children to learn all the content in the book, which sounds silly, but in a lot of programs, there's really a fair number of things that are kind of dropped in because they're interesting or fun or just for exposure. And that authors don't always make an effort to really make sure the kids actually learn those things. I think about this a lot, actually, in the conversations in the Facebook group about rigor. where
Mhm.
people say that Math with Confidence is a bit gentler than other programs, or that it doesn't have, for example, as challenging a word problems. And I think to a large extent, that's because I really expect that by the end of the year, most children will be able to do everything in that book with
Mhm.
like full mastery. There aren't meant to be things in there that you can't quite do. Or that some kids won't be able to handle. Like I don't include things that kids won't be able to handle because I'm trying to build confidence all the way through.
I think that is a very important distinction on the rigor. I also have a personal philosophy that my goal isn't to push them past comfort. I would rather have a gentle walk in a learning process than feel like I'm pushing them and they're disliking the subject or
Mhm.
resenting that it's time to do schoolwork. I mean, of course, there's going to be some of that. I have boys. My oldest two are boys. My daughter brings me her book, actually packed it in her church bag the other day because she wanted to do more. But my sons are not quite that way. So there's going to be some of that. But I would much rather have a very gentle learning process where they feel like they walked into it naturally instead of, oh, we're hitting some big topic that they feel like they've never seen before. So for my aspect, rigor is not a goal in my house. I have
Mhm.
a goal of developing a love of learning to where as they age and as they grow, they still want to learn and they don't look at this as something that they had to do as kids. And I also think that the way you're presenting a lot of these things shows them the real life application. And
Mhm.
so the word problems, for example, when you're talking about fractions and there's a lot of cooking, kinds of examples,
Mhm.
and then we're able to extrapolate that to the kitchen when we're doing projects, and then they can see how it all fits in. So I think where you're at right there is where we want to be. But there are families that want pushed.
Mhm.
And if they want pushed, this might not be their best fit.
Absolutely. And those programs exist. There are
Right.
programs out there that will push kids. And I really like, and so I think kids will learn everything they need to know to be capable and confident math students, to be well prepared for pre-algebra and algebra. But this will not, the goal is not for this to be, my goal is for it not to be hard. My
Yes.
goal is for it to feel gentle and incremental. And so for kids who really like a challenge, who really want to work hard in math, there's better choices out there, and that's okay. That's why it's such a great thing that we have such a range of homeschool math programs to meet different kids where they're at and different families where they're at.
And I agree with that too. Now, if there is a younger child who isn't bumping up against the threshold of the new releases, they can of course accelerate them, still keeping
Mhm.
with the aspects of math with confidence that they
Mhm.
love. But for those older children who want to push, then they are going to have to look elsewhere.
Yeah, and advanced kids can definitely use math with confidence a year ahead. For kids who are
Right.
super mathy and just think more abstractly than kind of their average kid their age, it's perfectly fine to use it a year ahead. But then if
As
your
long as
kid,
it's out.
yeah, but also, they might hit a wall and then you might slow down, and that's okay too.
Okay, are there still going to be colorful pictures in the program? Is it still going to have the same feel and look that we're used to?
Absolutely. Lots of pictures, lots of color. We have the same graphic designer on board for the whole series. And so he'll be bringing his awesome, whimsical, and fun illustrations all the way through.
Okay. Now, what do kids need to know before they come into fourth grade?
So the main things that kids need to know before they get to the fourth grade book are adding and subtracting multi-digit numbers, just with
Mhm.
the usual vertical stack math or addition, subtraction algorithms. They should have a pretty good grasp of the multiplication division facts. Some kids will have them totally mastered after third grade. Some kids will still be shaky, especially on those sevens and eights. If as long as a kid has a pretty good mastery of them, they're ready for fourth grade math with confidence. If they're still struggling with them, I'd recommend continuing to practice and letting them use a multiplication chart during the first few units, so that they can keep building automaticity and also keep moving forward. And then beyond that, they should be comfortable with just the basics of word problems and all four operations. So reading a pretty straightforward word problem and knowing whether it's addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. They should be able to find area and perimeter of a rectangle, and they should have just a basic understanding of fractions. To be able to read a fraction and like draw a pizza that shows 1/8, know that a half is more than a fourth, that kind of a thing. So really it's the multiplication, division facts, and the multi-digit addition, subtraction that are the key things that kids should know before they start fourth.
And I personally, we jumped into the pilot at fourth grade. So we didn't have your third grade program for a backup. And my son had not quite mastered his multiplication facts. But what we did the summer before was we did the multiplication facts that stick book. And we did the division facts that stick book. And I felt like that was really a good walking in point. So if there are kids that are third grade coming in from other programs or third grade math with confidence but haven't mastered, they can either pull out the games from the third grade book, or they can just do the facts that stick series to go along with it and to kind of have it as a summer refresh.
Absolutely. And if our kid is really weak on it, that'd be a really smart thing to do.
Yeah. And you can just pick out the weeks that they are, less advanced in. If they already have some of them mastered, I think that's a good choice. But there are ways to increase those over the summer. And it's also, I love things like that during the summer because I want them to still do something. And I feel like that kind of keeps them, one, in the habit, and then two, it keeps that stuff fresh in their mind. So for us, that worked really well.
Yeah, math facts are a great choice for math over the summer, and math facts that stick or multiplication and division facts that stick are good ones for that since they're so game based.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Okay. Are there still going to be star questions?
There will still be some star questions. So I include a star when it's a topic that's just a little beyond what we've done or something that's just a little bit of a stretch. But as I said before, there's not too many because I do like for kids to really feel like they can tackle everything in the book.
I've noticed sometimes my son will see a star and say, "Mom, we need to do this together. It's a star." And I'm like, "No, you're good. Let me know when let me know when you have a problem." Is there going to be bar modeling in grade 4?
Oh, so I think this was asked by a parent who has used Singapore in the past, where bar modeling is often used. And for people who aren't familiar with it, bar modeling is just a way of representing word problems with various bars and these particular kind of a specific kind of diagram to represent word problems. There will not be bar modeling in fourth grade. We will use it somewhat in fifth and sixth grade. I feel that Singapore's bar models are sometimes a little overly complicated. And they're a nice precursor to algebra, but kids are going to get to algebra and learn how to use X's and Y's to represent the same ideas. So I don't feel that it's worth quite as much time as Singapore gives it. But I also see them as really helpful for, in the fifth grade pilot, we've been doing things like finding 2/3 of 60 and taking your bar, break it into thirds and finding how much is in two of them is a very helpful way to model those problems. So in fifth and sixth grade, there will be some bar modeling, but not a ton.
We came from Singapore and it was very complicated for the second grade level to be introducing that concept. And he didn't he really struggled with that. It was one of our struggles. And when we've done it this year in the fifth program, he feels like he can do it all in his head. I'm like, yeah. The goal is, yes, you can, but we're practicing drawing the picture. That's our work right now. So it's worked super well. And I am glad that it was held off for a little bit because I feel like he's ready for conceptually that information at his age now at 10, 11, that he wasn't ready for at 8.
It's a very abstract way to look at real life situations. And some kids are ready for it in second and third grade, but many are not. And so, yeah, I think waiting till you're a little older and can think about things a little more abstractly really helps.
Okay. Can you tell us about games? Are there games in level 4?
There certainly are. And there's a lot of games. I don't think I've counted them all up or anything, but I think most lessons have a game or like a real life application or something fun to do with the content.
Now, we touched on this briefly earlier, but can you go a little more in detail on your philosophy with word problems, or do you feel like we kind of got that one out of the way?
Kind of covered it. I mean, I do want, word problems are so important because they teach kids to apply their math skills to real life. It helps them think more deeply about things than just pure numbers, but how this actually, how it actually goes in real life. But yeah, I think we covered it mostly. I'll just kind of repeat that I don't think it's necessary to have long, complicated word problems for kids to be good at math or for them to go deep into what they're thinking about. I think sometimes like an actual conversation about a problem that in the instructor guide is actually more beneficial than a big, long, drawn out word problem. And so I try to keep word problems very like true to kids' real life experiences, not kind of these hypothetical, complicated experiences, but things that they actually like have some background information with. I try to keep them pretty related to the math they already know how to do. And I try to really include all of the sort of key ways to conceptualize an operation so that they do get, so for example, in multiplication, we can think of it as equal groups. We can think of it as rows and columns in an array. We can think of it as like, I have 4 times more than you. So to make sure that the word problems cover sort of that variety of situations you could use an operation without making it unnecessarily complicated.
How many lessons does grade 4 contain?
Just like 3rd grade, it has 144 lessons divided into 16 units.
And what are the main topics covered in those lessons?
So 4th grade is in many ways an extension of what kids did in 3rd grade. They'll extend place value a little further with addition and subtraction, but the main focus is really on multiplication, division, and taking those skills further. So in 3rd grade, Math with Confidence, we did the multiplication, division, facts. And then in 4th grade, it takes them further into more mental math with multiplication, division, learning to multiply a multi-digit number by 1 digit, and then 2-digit times 2-digit. And then in long division, we work up from dividing like a 2-digit number by a 1-digit all the way up to 4 digits divided by a 1-digit number. So those computation skills take up a big chunk of it. In addition to that, we do a lot of measurement conversions, and that's a different application of multiplication division, helps kids to see multiplication division a different way. Equivalent fractions, again, more multiplication and division. We do also adding and subtracting fractions and mixed numbers. We'll do them with the same denominators here in 4th grade, and then in 5th grade, we'll do them with different denominators. And then introduction to decimals, which is a fun new topic for kids to think about numbers and place value in a new way. And then angles and geometry. And those were such fun lessons to write. I really enjoyed that unit on angles. And so kids learn what degrees mean, learn how to estimate, measure, draw angles, solve puzzles about angles, and then some review of triangles and quadrilaterals.
I don't think I still have it, but his notebook remains the same from year to year. One of our favorite little cutouts that was that angle slider.
Yes, the degree wheel.
That made it, right? That's in the that thing was so cool. It's these 2 circles you hook together, and it lets the kids visualize the degree wheel. The degrees of the circle. It was just awesome. That one was really
cool. I do liked it because that is a manipulative I invented myself, so I'm very proud of that one.
I was gonna say I've never seen it. You should actually have it made into a hard physical. That was
that's
great.
A great idea. Yeah,
that
was those angles really nicely. I was very pleased with that. Now it made it concrete.
It did, and also just the fact that I think part of the fun of it was that they cut it out and put it together, and it all came together. So.
Well, degrees are so hard to visualize. There's such funny little things about how much something opens. It's a whole new way of looking at space for kids. So I loved how the circles made it clear where that space was.
Okay, now this one I'm gonna ask it, and I'm gonna hope for the best. Will you go all the way through high school?
No, I will not. I'm so thankful for the people who asked this question and who love my book so much to want me to do that. But I'm really an expert at elementary math. I've tutored middle school and high school math. I have a math degree. I can do all that math. It's possible that maybe someday down the line, after I taught or tutored a whole bunch more kids, I would feel ready to do that. But no, 6th grade is the end. I love you all. I'm glad you appreciate the math, but 6th grade will be the end of Math with Confidence.
I think everyone just heard you say that you tutor kids, and we're going to have time to do that. So what you're saying here is one-on-one is an option.
I used to tutor kids before I was writing Math with Confidence.
Got it. Okay.
Maybe when I'm done, we'll see.
How does the cost compare to 3rd grade?
So again, very similar. The cover price is $2 more than the cover price for 3rd grade, just to reflect that it's slightly longer in the instructor guide. And, the cover price is hardly anybody pays the cover price. I would recommend not paying the cover price. If you look around, Amazon has sales. Well-Trained Mind, my publisher, has several good sales a year where you can get a really deep discount on it. And then Rainbow Resource and Christian Book Distributor often have great prices. So don't let the cover price scare you off, because you don't need to pay it.
And I will also point out on that, even at the cover price that is listed as pre-sale, it's still not as expensive as other programs that I was purchasing previously when you consider getting both semesters of the math program. So that is there, but I agree. I don't pay full price for hardly anything. If I can avoid it, why would you?
Yeah.
But on that note, I will have some links to purchasing down below, as well as the manipulatives and things that we've been using for anybody who has questions about what we've done specifically or where they can find them.
Sounds good.
All right. Will you ever consider making video lessons, adding supplements like tests or extra practice?
So that's something I'll consider once I've written the whole series. Right now, just writing the books is all I can, an occasional video interview. That's all I can handle. So video lessons are a really interesting idea. I have to kind of see where I'm at in a couple years and see where parents are at. I mean, my goal is that even if you are not mathy, even if math is scary to you, that the instructor guide will, and the lesson activities page gives you a lot of guidance to help you teach, even if you don't feel great about it. But I know parents are busy. I know, especially as kids get older, they want more independence from their parents. So it's something I'll consider down the line, but nobody should be holding their breath, because that would be at least 2 years out, if not more. So not anytime soon, unfortunately.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't think you have time currently, but
yeah. Maybe someday. We'll see.
Will the grade 4 program be more student independent, or is this still going to have about the same amount of teacher involvement?
So it's really about the same as third grade, very similar level. But then in 5th and 6th grade, we'll take another step up in independence. I do really hear that. And as you know, for being in the pilot test, we talked a lot about this within the pilot group before we got to 5th grade. We had the sense that people wanted more independence. So we did a lot of talking and thinking about what that might look like. And so do you want to show, I think you have your 5th grade materials out.
I have
some of the steps to independence in 5th grade.
I will plug a little bit for the ease of these 5-star note binders. These they have files in the front. So like we can put everything that we're using in here. This has been a really great addition for us, but it still held our 4th grade cover from last year. We just put the 5th grade cover over the top.
Yep.
But additionally, in those files, what we've been doing is putting your reference pages that have come with each unit. And I will go ahead and try to make this full so people can get a view. This is our unit 10 reference page. And what it does is it gives the kids an independent breakdown of how to solve the problems and types for each lesson that we're going over. And I'll let you speak a little more to that and exactly where that's going just down the road.
Yeah. So my goal with that was that kids would have something to refer to, as they go forward and do review pages, that if you get 2 more units down, in the book and you don't remember how to do something from unit 3, you don't have to actually go back and find unit 3. You have a separate page that just lists all those examples. And, as you showed on those reference pages, those are all taken directly from the lesson activities pages in 5th grade. So there's a lot more explanation in 5th grade. So you have something on the page already printed to refer to as an example. And I really wanted to include that to provide that for parents who don't feel so confident in math, to have more worked out examples, more step-by-step directions on the page. So they have something to refer to as they're using the instructor guide to walk through it. So the instructor guide is a little bit more like guiding the discussion of what's already on the page, as opposed to the parent needing to sort of put those examples on the page.
And I will say that for us, that the level of instruction given to the parent has been really great. I think sometimes it's easy to kind of take a look at that before your student comes in. So just as a tip, if you feel like things are dragging out forever, part of that could be your own deciphering of the material on the page itself. So if time is an issue, if you can pre-read that the night before, or even just spend 5 minutes before they walk in the room, I think that really gives a heads up. And then you can kind of summarize and know your child's strengths and weaknesses and what they need to be taught specifically and kind of how you can work that all in. So I think that the parent details are great regardless of level of math expertise, like you were saying, but it really gives you that flexibility to go ahead and kind of commit to what's going to work best for your child if you have that knowledge yourself of where you're headed in the lesson.
Yeah. And in general, in fifth grade, I've tried to get more things on the page so that it is just even more streamlined. There's still some hands-on activities and there's still games throughout, but not quite as many. It's just like a little step in maturity, a little step towards being, and also a lot of practice of reading a textbook. So it's teaching kids how to read a textbook, how to read text and math, and how to just be a little more mature where, oh, today I just read something and I solved the problems and I understand it and I'm moving on. So it fits where they're at developmentally. I still hope it's fun for people and engaging and hands-on, but it just is taking that little step forward so that they'll be ready to read their pre-algebra textbook whenever they get to that.
And can you tell us this? I'm throwing it out there. Can you tell us when we get to the end of sixth grade, will you provide recommendations for us on where to go next? Or do you have some ideas for people that are entering that now? Or is that something that we'll touch on a little bit more down the road?
That's something I'll be sure to post publicly as we get further. I have a few recommendations floating around in the Facebook group for anybody who's looking for that. It's been a couple of years since I have been tutoring pre-algebra and algebra, which is when I really did a deep dive into that last. So mine might be out of date. There may be some new things that have come along since then that I haven't had a chance to look at. But so as we get to the end of sixth grade, I will be sure to do a deep dive, provide recommendations, help people see how, if your kid enjoyed this part of Math with Confidence, this might be a good pre-algebra or things like that.
So you won't leave us hanging.
I won't leave you hanging, but I will also not write pre-algebra for you.
Oh, well. Maybe we can we'll keep up. We'll keep campaigning, but we'll just know that it's highly unlikely.
It's highly unlikely, at least for a while. That's for sure.
I think that's the end of the questions that I have for you.
Okay.
But did you have some questions for me as far as the end of actually teaching it?
Well, I know one thing that has come up a lot in the Facebook group is how to teach multiple levels. And you teach 3 levels a day. So any tips you have to offer along those lines would be really helpful.
Yeah, I think one of the important tips is to be a little bit prepared. I also love the use of timers. And, I have 10 minutes to work on this or 15 minutes. And if you have a child that needs more time, I still say set it, give them a time. And we use the oven timer for everything. Even if it's a 10-minute tidy to pick up the house, it's on the oven timer. But I like the idea of setting that time a little bit below where you think they need, just because kids love a challenge, right? So if they think I only have to sit here for 20 minutes and they're used to sitting there for 40, they're going to be excited about that. And they might not have that concept of time at the moment, but the first day that timer goes off and they get to jump up and go, they're going to develop that awareness. And I think sometimes I have one specifically that likes to drag everything out. He doesn't necessarily drag out the lessons, but he drags out getting there. He drags out, whatever it is.
The stuff, yeah.
Yeah. And he is very keen on the idea of, well, okay, I have 10 minutes and, you said 10 minutes and we're going to do it. I also think prepping them in 15 minutes, we're going to start your math. So whatever you need to get done needs to be done right now. If that's food or drink or bathroom break, all of the stall tactics have to be out of the way because it's your turn. And, the baby's going to need me in a minute. And so right now it's your turn. We're going to do math. We're going to start. We always start with my oldest and we work our way down. The little ones are really great at finding time to go play and do their own things. But I think that too depends on the house. We have 5 kids, and so they play super well together. If you just have 1 or 2, you might have to find some work for them to do independently. One tip on that is that's a great time to do the review sheet. So you can use that review sheet as the buffer for the child that you're not teaching at that time. They don't need your help on the review because it's all material that they've known previously. So start that child on the review sheet and do the lesson with the other. It also works super well for me to only have the student that I'm teaching in the room at the time, if at all
Ooh,
possible.
that's very, very clever.
I like that because then I'm not getting asked questions by other people and what's going on. I'll say, oh, this is his time. I'll be with you in a minute. I'm just, if they're bleeding, they get to break in. Or
Fair.
if
Vomit,
somebody's sick,
vomit.
yes. Are you puking or are you bleeding? No. Okay. Then we'll deal with it in a minute. So we have, kind of set up some barriers to access for those kind of situations. But more than that, it's just setting a timer, getting the others involved in something else, and creating a consistency. I think when they know 4 days a week we do math, 4 days a week we do reading, the 5th day is a flex day. If we get our work done Monday through Thursday, we don't have to do school on Friday. So they get a 3-day weekend. So creating those kind of reward systems, and their free time is after they do whatever we're working on, that has really helped for us.
Oh, that consistency makes such a difference. And it also makes it like your special time with your kid when it's just the two of you in a room. Even if it's math, it's a chance for the two of you to connect and just be together one-on-one. And so it also helps make it, not necessarily reward, but it's something special.
Right. I will also say my 2nd grader is the one that likes to slow roll everything. And I find that he often isn't super excited about the idea of starting, but he's also the same kid that I can never get to just play a game once. He always wants to play extra. And I think that's a tip too. Sometimes kids get so caught up in the game, and you do have to set a timer on that if you have multiple children. So if you're teaching multiple levels, you need to even limit the game time or have a sibling play the game if the ability allows, to where that can continue and the practice can continue without interrupting the flow of your whole day. You just can't let one child steal or alter the plans that you have for your whole morning. So that's it.
For sure. Because as much as we want to, be excited when kids are excited about learning, we want to nourish that. There's also limits, and that's okay. You can always play that game again another time, or in the afternoon with your sibling, or whenever wherever that might work. Yeah. Great. Well, thank you. I'm sure that'll be really helpful for parents who are trying to figure out how to do all 3. And I also just really love how you focus on like, how can I make this doable for myself? When I'm writing these books, I am kind of envisioning a best case scenario, and an average child, whatever that is. And so I hope parents will always feel very comfortable adapting to fit their family, their kid, their time, their schedule, their own teaching style. I write it scripted so that you can just read it, pick it up and read it. But you don't have to do it that way. And there are plenty of, ways you can kind of tweak it to fit your family best. And it sounds like you've done a lot of that.
Yeah, it's definitely a tool. We look at all curriculum as a tool. It is not the driver of our house. And so I think that people really need to just be encouraged that that's an option, and you can still be super successful without all of the hours of games and every book and everything that goes along with it. Yeah, definitely make it work. And I think a lot of times people assume that this is super teacher intensive. I've seen that word often. I don't find it intensive, but again, it's your own comfort level with where you're going, and just that pre-reading sometimes will help kind of take that concern away. But I think if we can manage the clock, then we can manage the program with
absolutely. Yeah. Great.
Well, if you don't have anything else, I just want to thank you for your time. And I know everybody really appreciates it. There's so many questions that come out. And I just want everybody to know that from our personal experience, the 4th grade program was really, really amazing. And I'm looking forward to everybody getting their hands on it. And I know that you are too.
I sure am. I can't wait to hold that book in my hands and not just have this binder of papers over here. But thanks so much for taking the time to meet with me today, Jill. I so appreciate all your feedback in the Facebook, or all your feedback for the pilot test, all helping moderate the Facebook group, and for all you do to help get the word out about Math with Confidence. So thank you so much for that. And I just want to thank everybody watching. I really appreciate your support and love and questions. And encouragement. Sometimes it just feels like me sitting here in my office typing. And so to have this wonderful community on Facebook who I see so engaged with the program, really, and all of you pilot testers giving me this real-time feedback, it just helps me not feel like I'm just, typing into the ether, but that this is a real practical program that I hope will bless a lot of families.
It definitely is. And I also want to encourage anybody, if you do still have questions, make sure to drop them below. And I'll also put a link to that Facebook group in the description, along with everything else down there that you can easily find. So we are available to answer those questions and help you out. And I just want to encourage everybody that, this is definitely doable and the program is going to be super helpful for you. I want to thank you guys for jumping in today, and I hope to see you back soon. And we'll be here to answer any questions that you might have coming down the road. So for now, for Kate and I, we'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.